In today's digital age, churches are now facing increasing cybersecurity challenges that extend beyond businesses and government organizations. Cyber threats and attacks have the potential to cause significant harm to houses of faith, leading to financial losses and reputational damages, and so much more. That's why in today's episode of Taking for Christ podcast, we're going to look at cybersecurity challenges and the church. Hello, everyone, and a warm welcome back to the Techie for Quiet podcast, the podcast where faith meets innovation. My name is Alexander, and I'll be your host on the podcast. On today's episode of the podcast, we're discussing a new topic and its relationship with the church and the Christian body. Today's episode is part of a series on cybersecurity, and the focus of this series is majorly for church leaders, pastors, and ministry leaders, most especially if you are running the digitalized systems in your church or ministry. As churches increasingly rely on technology for communication, donation, and data management, they become more vulnerable to cyber threats and attacks. In this first part of the podcast series, we'll introduce the concept of cybersecurity for churches. Look at the concept of cybersecurity for churches, and this simply involves implementing practices and measures to protect church organizations, your members, and your digital assets from online threats and attacks. So this includes safeguarding sensitive information like members' records, financial data, and also protecting your other assets such as websites, database, and communication channels from unauthorized access and data breach. Also includes educating your staffs, your volunteer members, your congregation members about online safety practices to prevent security incidents. Crucial understanding of cybersecurity and various cyber attacks is essential for churches. Additionally, it ensures continuity of operations, prevents disruptions in communication and financial transactions. It also helps in preventing financial loss due to fraud or theft. Next, we'll provide an overview of cyber threats, and I'm going to give a brief overview of some key or popular threats. So, for more in-depth understanding of each of these threats and how to defend against them, I will include a link to a resource guide in the description below. But then, it's very important to know that cyber threats and malicious activities aimed at disrupting, damaging, or gaining unauthorized access to computer systems, network, and digital data. Now, these threats include but not limited to number one is malware. Now, this is a malicious software designed to damage, disrupt, or gain unauthorized access to computer systems. Examples include your viruses, worms, and ransomware. So I would like to share a story based on my experience with a little bit of malware. I think it was in 2021 or 2022, and this is actually like a very candid advice I would like to give. A lot of times, like for churches or for people who are in this part of the world, like in Africa, a lot of times since we can't afford a lot of these softwares, a lot of us, have to depend on getting cracked versions of a lot of this software. I think I wanted to get a cracked version of a particular software and jumping from one site to another and trying to get a cracked version of this particular app. I ended up downloading a ransomware. So since then, I've actually learned that you know don't do stuff like that. If you have money to get a license copy, please do that. If you don't have, you can use the trial version or get an alternative, maybe like a free alternative or maybe like a much more cheaper alternative or an alternative where you can pay with your local currency. So trying to use cracked version, trying to use hacked version, trying to download from unauthorized website is very very bad. It's very very damaging and might have an effect. So the good thing about something like this was that when it happened, it was only limited to our system. So the person just put up a ransomware, locked our files, and then was demanding for money. So what we just did was that we just formatted it, and that was all. But it would have been prevented if we actually, or I rather, actually, stopped looking for cracked version of that particular app. So I think since then I've actually stopped, downloading cracked version of particular apps on the church laptop. And if it was a system, a laptop that is actually connected to a network and that would have just caused more damages than just that. So the next one we're going to look at is phishing, and this technique is used to trick individuals into providing sensitive information such as password or financial details by posing as a trustworthy entity in electronic communication. So this one is one of the most common ones, especially if you're a church that uses WhatsApp as your main communication channel. You don't use social media like that, but you use WhatsApp and you use mostly emails. You need to be very, very careful. You need to, inform or educate your members against links like this because these guys are very smart. They can decide to come up with a system whereby they will think they are chatting with you. They will think the message is originating from you. Let's say the pastor, or the leader, or the ministry leader, or someone who is very key in the church, and then use that to get sensitive information from the people. So you need to educate your your members, your those who are around you about this cyber threat called phishing. So it's very, very common, very, very common. Though people tend to claim that they are getting wiser, but these guys too are actually getting more and more sophisticated. So the next one is social engineering, and this one is very, very complex, like a very, very complex thing when it comes to cybersecurity. It's very, very complex because this involves manipulating individuals into divulging confidential information or performing action that compromise security, often through deception. Like when I was actually in school and then I was studying about cybersecurity as a course, and I was reading about social engineering. Social engineering is deeper than what we think it is, and I think that churches will fall victim to social engineering more than organizations, than people who are outside there, because the way we are wired, we are knitted, we are a community. So there's a chance that somebody can just come and pose as you as a leader, and provided the person plays the card right, he can actually get the members to do certain things. Social engineering is a very big menace when it comes to cybersecurity. It's something you need to inform your members about, something you need to educate them about. Especially, like I said, for churches, because we are, close, we are knitted. So we tend to trust each other, we tend to trust people. And when the attack is coming from a person of authority, like a pastor or a ministry leader or someone who's influential in the church, then there's a very, very high risk of people falling, to that. So the next one is man in the middle, and this is this interception of communication between two parties by a third party without their knowledge, often to steal information. So man in the middle can come in the case whereby you are trying to perform a transaction, and then it directs you to a particular link, and then you thinking it is that same website, or somebody sends you a link, and then it goes there, you see that it looks legit, but it is not. The person is using it to steal maybe your credit card information, your personal information. So you need to educate people about these things. When you are performing financial transactions, don't do it on free Wi-Fi. It's very, very important. Don't just connect to any Wi-Fi and then do anything on it. Because some these guys, like I said, they are getting smarter every day. And it's just a matter of just getting the right tools on their system or on their machine, or wherever they want to use, and then they can just do it. And the funniest thing about this is, like, I was reading IBM reports on cybersecurity for this year. One of those reports said that even some of the tools that people use legitimately, maybe to learn cybersecurity or to learn hacking, to learn a lot of these things, are now being used for malicious intent. So you don't want to be too careless with how you do your things. You're not just someone who will just see free Wi-Fi and then you connect to it and then you perform some particular transactions on it. No, you don't want to. So you want to educate your members on that. So the next one is SQL injection. So this is an attack that exploits vulnerability in a website software to execute malicious SQL statements. So allowing an attacker to gain access to the website database. So if you have a website, if you have, let's say, a database, or you have a system that you designed, or you've implemented, you want to, as much as possible, to take note of this SQL injection. This SQL injection is very bad, because what they just do is that they send a lot of query to the database, and sometimes the database can crash because of that. Sometimes the database can send error. Sometimes the database, they can use that to, sometimes they can even use that to even slow down the traffic. A lot of these things, a lot of these guys don't have conscience, they don't have fear of God in people. So for them, there's nothing. If you are thinking of the most illogical way people will want to get into your system, then that's the way they will most likely want to get into your system. And what I like to say about cybersecurity is that, think about the craziest way anybody can ever try to get into your system. And that's the way they are going to get into your system, because there is nothing logical about the way these people think. So, other one that we have is denial of service, DOS attacks, we have DOD exploits, and insider threat. So let me just share a little bit about this insider threat. This insider threat might come in the case of, how will I put it? In case of not actually knowing that you're actually posing like a threat to the system that is already existing. Like cybersecurity, you have two form of attacks. You have internal and external. External is the most common one, like, so okay, somebody is trying to access your database or all that. But somebody can actually try to access the database legitimately, and then through that create an exploit or create a vulnerability. So you need to also train your people on how to do these things and how to do this right. Like if they finish using the system, they finish doing a particular thing on the database or somewhere, they need to know that okay, you need to log out, you need to clear, you need to what are the things that you need to put in place so that another person who is coming will not have access to it immediately. Like if you have a system, you need to put, you need to password it. But then again, you don't want to show whereby you just close the system and then someone can just come up and then put the system and then the system just on and the person has unauthorized access to it. So it's very, very important that you put a lot of these things in place. So at this point, I'm sure some of you are still, you might still be listening and you're wondering why the church or why the Christian faith community, why do we need this knowledge? You might be wondering, Alexander, why do we need to be conscious about cybersecurity? That's for big organizations to worry about. That's for people like Adobe. That's for people like Sony. That's for people like US government to worry about. Why should we be concerned about cybersecurity? So we need to understand that being just a small church in a remote part of the world, whether you are in Nigeria or you're in Canada or you're in I don't know anywhere in the world, knowledge of cybersecurity is very, very important. So and that's also to do with the size of the church or the faith that we profess. Because one of the reasons why I'm encouraging you to be cyber aware is that these people don't know all these attacks. They don't know any better. They don't say, oh, these people are religious. Oh, these guys are it's a church. They don't let us attack them. They don't have moral compass. They don't have moral conscience for you. Anything for them is a free day. Anything for them is a free meal as long as they can get access. Sometimes they might just get access to it and don't end up doing anything with it. But to them, everything is just fun to them. Provided with an exploit in it, they are ready to make use of that exploit. So you are doing yourself a big favor and your members, a big favor by getting them interested and aware of these menace called cyber attacks and cyber threat. So to not only be beneficial to you, but also have an impact on how we live and transact. First part of our series, we've explored the essence of cybersecurity, emphasizing that it's no longer exclusive to large corporations or a matter of just national security. Historically, churches have been complacent in implementing preventive measures against cyber attacks, often dismissing the need for concern. However, the landscape of cyber crimes is evolving, and churches of all sizes and locations, whether in the US, Nigeria, Kenya, or Canada, are potential targets for cyber criminals who operate without moral conscience. It is crucial for churches worldwide, including those in Nigeria, to prioritize countermeasures and prevent strategies against online attacks both now and in the future. Thank you for joining me on today's episode of the Techie for Christ podcast. Now, for more in-depth discussions, stay tuned to the next episode of the podcast. Now, before you leave, don't forget to subscribe, share, and leave a review if you found today's episode valuable. Your support keeps me going and motivates me to do more. Also, stay tuned for the next episode of the podcast where I'm going to share some cybersecurity best practices and also specific tips for churches. I bet you don't want to miss that, so stay tuned for the next episode of this podcast. Don't forget to connect with me on social media on Instagram and Twitter, and also follow me on TikTok at Techie for Christ. Now, don't forget to check out my YouTube channel for this podcast on YouTube. And also, if you're a podcaster and you're looking to collaborate or just share insights and ask questions related to technology and Christian faith, feel free to reach out to me also. Also, you can share your stories and testimony to me via my Instagram and Twitter handles again at Thank You for Christ. Now, thank you for joining me today. Until next time, keep innovating, stay faithful, bless, tech savvy, and may your tech influence bring abundant blessings to your church and community. This is Alexander once again for signing up on the Thank You for Christ podcast.